Million Career, where we show you how to build, supercharge, and plan your insurance career. I have with me today Jarid Beck, co-founder of Risk Management Advisors based in Long Beach, California. Your bio summary says Jarid design, implement, and manage self-insured plans in captive insurance companies. I want to learn more about your company, Jarid, but more importantly, I want to learn more about your journey that you have been on to build and grow your own organization. I find it to be very, very interesting. You've been very, very successful. I want to hear some inspirational stuff today so we can get some more young people interested and involved in the insurance industry. So welcome to the show, Jarid. How are you today?
Rob, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me. I've been actually been looking forward to this quite a bit.
Great. So I guess the first question is, why insurance? Have you always been drawn to insurance? Why do you do this? Because I'm sure there's a lot of young people out there watching this that are also thinking the same thing, like, why insurance? So I'm going to ask you that question. Why a dynamic, fun-loving guy like you? Why insurance?
No, definitely not always drawn to insurance, and certainly not, captive insurance companies, which you mentioned in my bio. I didn't even know what that was, when I was starting my career. I backed into the industry, which I think is probably a common answer that you get from folks, but it's definitely the case here. I was finishing up college, and it was 1999. You remember that time? It was the first tech boom, right?
Yeah.
And so stocks were going nuts. AOL, Qualcomm, like Yahoo, those names, which feel like old hat now. But and I was a business major, and I was interested in finance, so I thought I wanted to be a financial planner.
Yeah.
And kind of the perception back then, it's evolved over time, but financial planning in that context meant stocks and giving investment advice and things of that nature. So when I was interviewing for jobs, it was Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, the old Payne Weber, that type of stuff. Companies that aren't even around anymore. And I was having great meetings, but you're talking to, the hiring manager and understanding the requirements. And, there was just these huge obligations to bring in, big assets under management, hundreds of millions of dollars, even back then, in the first couple of years. And at the time, I'm a college graduate, lower middle class upbringing. My network was my college, my beer buddies.
Sounds like me.
Yeah, exactly. So, they're getting into like, all right, well, who are you going to call to talk with about this stuff? And it's like, well, my friend makes $20 an hour, and so, real quick, you're realizing like, all right, kind of setting yourself up for a little bit of failure there. So, and also what I realized, maybe hindsight, whatever, but, I was really advanced on the technical side. I was already studying for CFP, certified financial planner, things of that nature, but I had no clue, no training on, why anybody would want to, listen to me or take my advice, and so, maybe I kind of intuitively knew that. And so I got some advice that, hey, there's another world in the financial planning universe, which is more, on the insurance or risk management side. And still going to be a lot of work, still a slog, still tough. But, there's some more opportunities for success early on, specifically, you sell a few policies per month, you're having, you start notching some wins, get a little money in your pocket, and you can sort of build things that way. So, I went that route. There was options to do, like office work or intern work or, understudy type work. I felt like I wanted to be in front of people and planning, giving advice. Like that felt important at the time. I was like, I want somebody to, listen to my advice.
It sounds like you entered on the sales side though, right? Like
absolutely. Yeah. And, and I've coached people over time, and I've given people advice to the contrary, but depending on who I'm talking with, but that was just, I felt like, nope, I want to get in on the sales side for sure.
It seems like, insurance sales is one of the least talked about great sales models. If you really think about it, you get paid on new business, and then what, 95% of your business probably renews over to the next year, and you get paid again on that without even really touching it too much in a lot of cases, because you have support and service behind you in these organizations. So, I mean, it seems to me almost, if you're going to do sales, insurance is almost a no-brainer, because what other industry can you sell things and get paid 95% on your book renewing for now until the end of time, until that customer leaves? It seems like such an unbelievable sales model to create wealth.
It's a great point. My partner has an awesome saying where he'll say, hey, for the first 5 years, you're going to be vastly underpaid relative to your peer groups who, go out and get the sales job with the car and, expense account and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, why did I do this? That looks so much better. But then, 10 years on, 15, 20 years on, you're vastly overpaid relative to the amount of work you have to put in compared to other sales jobs. And I can tell that's 100% true. So,
yeah. So, I had an old boss too, and he was a billionaire, Robert Friedland. He bought one of my companies in Africa. This around about the year 2000, about the same time you're entering the business world. And I remember this guy told me one time, Robert told me, he says, Rob, he says, there's only two kinds of people. I said, what's that, Rob? He says, owners and temps. And that saying has always stuck with me, because it really is true. Like, you're either an owner of a business, right? I mean, like, you and I are owners of our businesses, or you're essentially a temporary 2 weeks from getting a pink slip because the guy or the gal, your boss, doesn't like the way you part your hair. So talk to us a little bit about, your path to ownership, and when you finally decided, hey, I want to own something, I want to own my business, and talk to the younger people out there about what that journey is like too. Because for me, it was really scary when I was opening up my recruiting business, 20 years ago. But I'd like to hear your take on that in your journey.
Yeah, it was. So after getting into, started in the sales and the insurance side of the equation, and started Northwestern Mutual. Which company you're probably familiar with.
Yeah.
Still to this day, one of the few companies that has great training.
Yes. Great training there, man. Jeez.
And me and my partners, we all come out of that system. And while we've changed things and done things our way, there's still, just training principles we go back to there. So, quick plug for, Northwestern there, but I left there and went to a financial planning firm, just locally. And, we started working more with business owners. And so it just sort of started sinking in this idea of, I want to do my own thing. And, maybe it was a matter of, I don't want people telling me what to do. I didn't like taking orders at a base level. Maybe it was just, again, that potential freedom, or pride in building your own thing. But it became very, very, very important to me to just be a business owner. And I remember, I would just, people I would network with or whatever, was, throwing out ideas for, hey, we could be a business owner in this, we could be a business owner in that.
Right. Exactly. You always get that.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So kind of, if you could just make the connection with, what you're doing now, maybe,
Yeah. And that's ultimately what led to us founding Risk Management Advisors. So, I was working at this firm in Newport Beach. I was working, I guess I was an associate there. He was a partner at this firm at the time. And we had discovered this concept of captive insurance companies. And he was, about to split from, his current partner. They were not seeing eye to eye. And, he said, like, hey, do you want to go start this practice, together, and set up Risk Management Advisors and get into this business. at which point it was, that was a no brainer. That was, pretty much what I had been looking for. No secret. And so that's, we did that. So 2004, Risk Management Advisors was founded. And what it was all around is this concept of a captive insurance company.
Yeah.
Which, for those who aren't familiar,
Yeah.
it's an insurance company that a business sets up to insure its own risks.
I got you. Right. So if you could talk a little bit about like what the difference between a captive insurance organization is and then a traditional independent insurance agency for a lot of people.
Yeah. So, well, I'll make a distinction there. So there's captive insurance agencies where, like, in Northwestern might be an example of a captive insurance
Right.
agency where you go to work for that company and you only sell their products.
Right. Exactly.
You don't broker other products out there.
Like State Farm and Nationwide are kind of similar, right?
Yeah, and a couple other perfect examples. State Farm might be that might be the quintessential example.
Yeah.
Whereas, regular agencies or brokerages, you can broker any other product out there. You just get licensed with that company or work through a wholesaler, and you can sell a multitude of products. So, and again, I'll make a distinction though. So what we do with captive insurance companies is different than a captive insurance agency. So a captive insurance company is a business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say, I'll use it. So like Verizon, for example,
right,
has a captive insurance company where they insure their own risks.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yeah. So it's, or, you remember like the Horizon oil spill, the BP?
Yeah. Yep.
Remember that?
Yes.
So, that was obviously hundreds of millions of dollars in liability, reparations, cleanup.
Right.
That actually never hit the traditional insurance market. BP's own insurance company paid for all of that. So those are the type of structures that we set up for our clients.
Is that what they call self-insurance?
It is. So, but it's a very formalized version of self-insurance, where self-insurance is just like, hey, I'm not going to buy insurance. I'm going to set up a sinking fund and hope that I've got enough there,
right,
to pay my losses. But what a captive is, you actually you form a separate corporation, and then you go to the Department of Insurance in whatever state you're set up in, Delaware, Vermont, Hawaii, and you get a license to issue insurance policies to your businesses and related parties.
I got it.
So it's a very formalized version of self-insurance. Some nice advantages: you still get a tax deduction for the premiums that you pay into the insurance company. So it's a very financially efficient way to self-insure. You can access the reinsurance market, which, as you know, is insurance for insurance companies.
Oh, really? You can access that? Okay.
Yeah, no, exactly. So we have, big companies, and they access, reinsurance through their own wholly owned subsidiary insurance company.
Right.
And, so you get to buy, you can't do it all the time, and, but you get to essentially buy your insurance wholesale.
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of retail. Right. So.
Got it. So who would your target market typically be? Like, what kinds of companies would typically, require your services? Kind of give me a sample.
Great question. So our clients tend to be privately held,
Mm-hmm.
so just family owned, or a few partners, so privately closely held businesses. Let's call it 20 million, up to $1 billion in revenue. So a broadly defined middle market.
Okay.
If you will. This strategy started, as you can imagine, with publicly traded companies, Fortune 500 companies, and it used to be restricted to, just that.
Yeah.
Over time, just like anything, and the market becomes more broad and it trickles down. And there's so many cool things you can do with, again, these privately held businesses in what I just described. But, it's all, working with sophisticated businesses, profitable, best in their class, interested in lowering insurance costs, reducing tax,
Mm-hmm.
protecting their assets, and doing things a more creative, better way. So that was that was the idea or the tool
Mhm.
that led us to say, hey, let's start Risk Management Advisors and focus on just this.
And what you do is you provide services. You don't actually take on any financial risk, right? With the,
Correct.
as far as the insurance. So
Correct.
you actually show these companies how to set it up and how to implement it. Is that correct?
Exactly. So, I mean, we have things we do strategically where we take some risk and, but the primary business is showing the pathway for the business owner. So, a typical example, you might have a, business owner, paying a couple $1 million in premium, but his losses are very low.
Right.
Right. Does the
Yeah.
insurance company ever give any money back? No. Right. But if he has a bad year, let's say he has 3 million in losses against 2 million in premium, they're going to come and raise that. They're going to raise that premium the next year.
Yeah.
So our concept is set up your own insurance company. You buy reinsurance or excess to protect yourself from anything catastrophic. But in all those years where you have those low losses, you keep that.
Right.
And then you build the war chest for yourself.
It seems like a lot of the reinsurance companies are offshore. Why is that?
Well, I think they, a lot of them offshore, Europe,
Yeah, right.
European markets.
Yeah. Is it just because globally it's just such a huge market, I guess? That's probably.
Yeah, I think it's, the US has lent it, I'm sure there's a, historical pathway for it, but I think the, US market lends itself towards retail, consumption, right? And, European markets or offshore, from a regulatory standpoint, and just a creativity standpoint, there's a little bit more in terms of, hey, we can do different things.
It seems like I mean, obviously I'm an insurance recruiter and I deal with a lot of companies who are looking for people that have experience in self-insurance within their independent agency or their brokerage. But what you're doing seems like a real value add. Where do you see your business in terms of, are you at the infancy or is it a very mature market? How do you see the glide path, I guess, in terms of your growth?
Yeah, I think it's, the second inning.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, if you, and this is instructive, maybe for your audience, but, for us, if you look, part of what we've always prided ourselves on was, in any marketplace, there's going to be somebody who's got a need. And, all right, so let's figure out a solution or a strategy to meet that need.
Right.
And it just so happens that, the captive insurance concept checks a lot of those boxes, right?
Yeah.
Lower insurance cost, protecting your balance sheet, financially efficient, lower tax, right? And those needs aren't going anywhere, right?
That's what I mean.
I mean, health insurance, outpacing inflation every year for the last 20 years, costs going up, with very little explanation from the insurance companies on why you pay what you pay. And then if you dig deeper, you find out the health insurance companies are actually in bed with the hospitals and incentivized to pay more. The insurance buyer is not the customer of the insurance company. The hospital is. They're the chum in the water to feed their system. Captives address that. Our strategies address that. If you talk to property and casualty brokers, excess market more expensive than primary market.
Right.
In some cases, auto liability outrageous, property outrageous. So these things aren't going away. It's only going to increase the demand for what we're doing. And again, back to what's instructive for. Well, I think that's instructive. One is like find the need and then build the solution around it. I mean, that's helpful. The other thing is, if you look at regular brokerage or regular, even go over to investment advisors, it's very competitive. There's so many.
Yeah.
Right. And they're all doing, so for us, it was like, all right, well, where can we move?
Yeah.
Where, hey, there's a little space here. There's a niche that we can drive a truck through.
Yeah.
And that was the captives. We have competitors, we do, but we're all friendly competitors because there's only 20 of us nationwide. I mean, 20,
Oh.
25. I mean,
That's a good space to be in, man. Do you have and what about the barriers to entry for a new player in your industry? Are there any barriers to entry? Do you guys have a wide moat, or is it just like nobody's thought of it? Or why is there only 20 or 25 competitors?
yeah, well, one, I think the marketplace wasn't always there.
Yeah.
And that's developed over time. I think our industry generally is slow to adopt new trends, right? People like,
Sure.
hey, I got a hammer, let me, whether it's a nail or not, let me go hammer. So I think some of that, the barrier to entry used to be low. Anybody could call a state and get, licensed as
Yeah.
to do what we do. They've since put some restrictions around that. But that being said, like anything, you got to know what you're doing, which requires some study, which has been another big thing. Yes, it's a sales job, but it's also highly technical.
Yeah.
I mean, if you looking at policies, I mean, those are contracts, right? Giving financial advice essentially. So there's a certain, study threshold that you're going to have to learn and educate yourself to come in and give the advice, and then you got to build the infrastructure around it. You got to build the business. So
Great.
those would be the I mean, similar to building an agency in some ways, but those are the basic barriers.
So for people out there that are interested, particularly, I don't want to keep saying the younger people out there, but I mean, anyone out there who is thinking about starting up an insurance agency or starting up, something, a small company. What are the critical success factors in like taking on that challenge? I know when I did this, it was pretty scary, what I mean? But I want to get your take, Jared, and what you think some of the critical success factors of some people out there that are thinking about maybe opening up their own insurance agency or insurance firm.
Yeah, I would say, first thing, like, old saying, you are your network, right? So, and within that, I mean, find a mentor, right? And I was lucky to have, a mentor who, became, or one of my mentors, and he became my partner.
Yeah.
So that was good, but doesn't have to be that way. Find someone, to, mentor you and emulate, preferably more than one. Then you got to find a peer group to network with, folks that are going through, doing the same stuff you are, kind of at the same, or maybe a little higher level. So you can learn from them. And you actually probably want to, within that group, you probably want to be, a notch below, right, wherever they're at. Because then you're learning things to pick yourself up and aspire to.
They say that you're the average of the 5 closest people that you hang out with.
That's right. And I don't know if 5 is the exact number, but I think that's definitely true. And I look now, I mean, I have, it's, long-term friendships, long-term relationships. But if I look at, what interactions and what meetings do I come out of most inspired? It's with people that have a mentor's mentality, but are more successful than I am. And I come out of those interactions energized, challenged. Whereas if you're hanging out with, status quo or people that, haven't achieved as much or don't have the same goals, then, hey, maybe you had a good time, but, you're not going to be stimulated or growing in that direction. So I think it's very important to, compartmentalize those, those times, right? Hey, we're going to spend a certain amount of time over here, but, definitely need to be, building your network. We've got some young guys here that we've brought on, and, hey, go meet new people, go network. And, you're going to meet a bunch of people, but you never know which ones are going to turn out to be the super valuable relationships. But you've got to build out that group of people that, you're kind of coming up with at the same time. So that's key.
Good.
And then, so that's kind of networking and all that stuff. I think the other thing is, I mean, especially in our business, yours too, I mean, and early on is just get used to the idea of being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Embrace the uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, you go normal sales job or normal, office jobs or, whatever. I mean, they sort of, put you on rails, and put the brackets around you. And while you'll get some of that here with training, at the end of the day, you're going to be out in tough spots, not knowing what to say, not being, not being very good at, caught off guard, and it'll just be tough, but that's where the growth comes from. And I think everybody intuitively knows that, but you've got to settle in and say, hey, I'm going to take it, I'm going to take the punches in the face and just keep going. And then you get to, you got funny things to look back and laugh about.
Yeah. The Mike Tyson, the former heavyweight boxer, real colorful guy, has a saying about getting punched in the face. I'm sure you've heard it before,
Absolutely. Everybody's got a plan. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Exactly. It's so true. In like sales is sort of a micro ownership, because like in insurance, you book a sale, it's part of your book of business. You don't really own it, but it becomes your book. And recruiting is very similar, and you get a lot of rejection, particularly early on when you're making mistakes, and you got to be able to get punched in the face and get back up again. So
that's right.
That's interesting.
And that's hugely where the peer group or the support group, and that can be family, where that comes in, because you're gonna be like, this sucks, I quit. And you're gonna need that person that's like, nope, make adjustments, whatever, and get back out there. Or, hey, maybe, I mean, again, if you've got the right set of advisors or network, then, maybe it is, hey, you're doing this, you're in this niche of the industry. Maybe, maybe you'd have more success based on your skill sets over here. That.
Oh, very true. So, I mean, you've obviously, checked the boxes on those critical success factors, and you've been very successful. But I mean, at the end of the day, why do you think people buy from you as an owner and your services? What is it about you or your company that you've done that really creates that distance between you and your competitors?
Yeah, I mean, initially, it's definitely the fresh perspective on things. The contrarian approach, right? So that resonates with, it resonates with some people, and with everybody else, it at least gets you in the door, to hear something different. So that's on an initial basis. I think, I'd like to say, hey, our long-term clients, they've stuck with me because, I'm brilliant or, smart or whatever. But actually, I think if I look at the best ones, it's because they know, they're like, oh, this guy actually cares, in the approach and the attention that we give them. And I can't even pinpoint, a specific thing, but just, like I've come out of, some tough meetings and you're like, oh man, that didn't go well. But then, it still comes back around because, they know we care, we know we'll show up and we'll deliver. And, even if there's a tough patch or whatever. And I've had people say, oh, he only got the business because he's friends with so-and-so. And I always come back to, no, we're friends because we did the work. Because he can trust me.
The other thing too is, I've always felt like when you first start out owning your own business, people tend to buy from you because it's your personality, it's who you are. They trust you, they know you. And you've done this quite successfully, obviously, but talk a little bit about how you transitioned from people just buying from Jarid to people buying from your firm because of what your firm stands for. Like we get into scaling now, like how do you scale a business? You got to, be able to put in place business process, put in place standards, a playbook, hire the right people, hire the right personalities that are, that have, skills and experiences and backgrounds that are in direct alignment with your strategic vision and your corporate culture. That to me is always the big challenge that a lot of people I see in the insurance business, particularly those that are big time producers and they decide to start their own firm, they start out, everyone's buying from them, Jim Smith, because he's like the rainmaker, but then they always have a tough time transitioning to an organization. So talk to me about how you crack that code, because there's very few people that can actually make the transition from sales to a business owner, because those skills and attributes are a lot of times mutually exclusive. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was something we actually botched a little bit early on. Coming out of the backgrounds that we all had, it was very much the the magic of the producer, right?
Right.
All all stars and planets orbit around that. And and then part of it was also just timing. Right as we were getting our sea legs, we had the Great Recession, 2007, 2008, 2009. So coming out of that,
wow,
maybe we're a little reluctant to start shelling out salaries. But in hindsight, we've right-sized that, and bringing on people that were more talented than ourselves in specific areas was the best thing we've ever done. And the idea was, hey, great, we built this. I've done every aspect of this business. I know it backwards and forwards, but that's not sustainable. At some point, you want to take a vacation, you want to be able to take time off and relax. So bring in the people that know how to do those things.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
We probably should have brought in more, qualified salespeople early on instead of carrying, so much of that load. We could have grown a little faster.
Yeah.
And hire some more technical people. So, but now, I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to cut, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so now we're getting into a subject matter area that I believe is the true separator between good companies and great companies. And that's talent. That's people. So as you probably know, we're in a crisis now of finding like really good, talented people. We could go different directions on this, but I wanted to get your take. I'm always interested and fascinated by the different perspectives people have, but what type of, attributes do you look for in people that you hire? Now, attributes are different than like skills, different than experience. Attributes are those things like, determination and like grit and collaboration and team ability and intellectual curiosity, insight, all this kind of stuff. Like, I'm always curious to find out like what business owners, particularly in the insurance business, are looking for in terms of attributes.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for us is,
or maybe it's more experience or skills. I don't know. You tell me.
It's both. So, I mean, for what we do, we definitely need, for leadership positions, some experience and skills. And we've hired to that. But, it's also attitude and temperament.
Okay,
right?
temperament. Yeah.
So, it's a small company. We have 17 employees on our team. And so, there has to be an ability to, work within a team and get stuff done. And, everything can't turn into a capital issue. And so, as we look, and stuff we could have done better over time, but it's really, you can train the knowledge, the skills, and the ability.
Yeah, right.
You can teach that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's, hey, are we going to work well together? do you take ownership of your mistakes so we can move on, or is it, every dispute or every mistake, is it, something we have to arbitrate out for, for weeks at a time. Does
Let
that
me
make
pause there
sense?
for a second, man. So you mentioned ownership, right? Have you read this book?
Oh, is that the Jocko?
Jocko, man.
Yeah.
This is must reading, man. I actually met Jocko. I do special operations leadership at some of the bases and stuff. I ran into Jocko probably about 8-9 years ago. And I remember thinking, this dude is like the real deal, man.
Yeah.
And then I read his book, and man, it's all about extreme ownership. And I'm so happy to hear him mention that, because that's like at the top of my list. You got to take ownership and accountability. Like if a direct report makes a mistake in front of the boss, you never say it's his mistake. You take accountability. I'm the boss. It's my fault. And you protect him, and then you deal with him behind closed doors later. But, being accountable and extremely owning what you do, if that's what you do, man, you're going to be very successful.
Yeah, thanks. We and that's definitely something that's evolved. Like I remember when so you talk about growing pains of starting a business, going from one-man shop or two-man shop to a company. We hired a few people, and my dad was a short, great guy, but he would let you know how he was feeling. And then other bosses I had. So I just thought like, all right, well, hey, bosses yell, and I was like, all right, well, I'm a business owner now. Time to let the troops know. And you realize like,
now I can start yelling at people, right?
Yeah. But then you think back like, all right, when I was, unless you're in the military, literally, but who wants to get, balled out for, the, silly little things. So, I like to think that I've certainly relaxed over time, and, a little more easygoing about mistakes. And that's the thing. A lot of these, mistakes that get made, it's nothing that can't be, it can't be fixed or recovered from. And then maybe some of that comes with experience, but yeah, ultimately, if somebody's messed up, then it's something we probably did wrong in communicating,
exactly.
how what the expectations were.
Exactly.
And, what the goals and objectives, all were. So, but those are the best folks that we work with, where it's, hey, there was a mistake. Okay, I won't do that again. And then it's like, all right, let's, take ownership of that, and it just, extract the venom, right? And then, allows everybody to move on.
No, that's great, man. If you could instill that sort of extreme ownership attitude in your company, you guys are going to be wildly successful, because that's why our special operations community has no peers worldwide. I don't care who you put up against our special ops. The NCO Corps, it's all about extreme ownership. The NCOs are the backbone of the military, as everybody knows, and that those guys, I work with them a lot, and there is like extreme ownership to the nth degree. There's no blame game going on, because you can't, because if you do, somebody's gonna get killed. So
no, and certainly, and I think that's probably the effectiveness of Jocko's stuff and those models is when you have those type of stakes, and then you scale it down to what we deal with day to day. You're like, all right, with a little bit of perspective, like maybe this isn't as big of a deal. And I think it also speaks to hey, you can get the training, but then when you're out in the field, or when you're actually doing it, it's tough to micromanage a Navy SEAL, right? You're out on a op, or you're out doing that stuff. There's no time for micromanagement, and that's, at least for us, we look for people that can also one, take ownership of their work, but then also just be self-sufficient, and accountable to, like, all right, hey, I'm going to get the job done. I may start at 7, I may start at 9 because I got to take the kids to school, whatever the case may be, but ultimately the job is going to get done. And there's not a requirement for micromanaging or overly checking in. It's just that okay, hey, you're a pro, I'm a pro, we're gonna get this done. And that's another key piece of what we look for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, I've done a lot of interactions with my clients, and there's a lot of research out there. There was a great Wall Street Journal article out there a couple weeks ago, and there was a Harvard Business Review article that was out about 6 months ago. And they were talking about what do talented people look for in an organization? Why do they stay and why do they leave? And how can you attract them? And it's been pretty interesting because I never really thought about this, but the number one thing that people, look for in a company now is purpose. Company has to have purpose. And that purpose has to be communicated down on a consistent basis by everybody, up and down the chain of command, if you will. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, how do you view your purpose, at your firm, and how do you look at the, qualitative things that you offer your clients, and how does that affect how they look at you? So, I mean, do you guys have a mission statement, or do you have a mantra? Or, I mean, if I was working at your firm and somebody said, what's the purpose of Jared's firm? How do you think they'd answer for that?
So I don't know if it's so much as a mission statement, but we've been very focused on culture.
Got it.
And frankly, with a small working group, maybe, family, or at least, people we enjoy working with, and then that accountability to one another. Right. So,
yeah.
You get the, hey, you're not going to have the micromanaging boss. You're going to get a little latitude in, your flexibility. You're going to be treated fairly, and, a level of friendship there. But you've got the responsibility back to the group to do your job. So very focused on culture, and those who, want to bring in, discord or drama, don't always fit quite so well. And the people that are here are, they've been, they're protective of that. I think people generally, are genuinely like, working in the environment we've created. And so I think it's, it's been about creating that environment and then hiring the people that enjoy working in that, in that type of setting.
Yeah, I think that's right. The fact that it seems like you focus in your hiring practices and your retention programs, it sounds like you focus more on the who of the person as opposed to the what. And in my business, in executive search, I have a saying, it's most people are hired for what they've done, but they're always fired for who they are.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it really is true. I mean, if you're focusing on the who, which is exactly what you just said, the culture and the family work-life balance, that's a home run, man. That's why that's how you'll be able to attract talent, and that's how you'll be able to retain it, because that's what people are looking for now.
Yep. And again, you can teach that stuff. I was one of our clients, the human resources, got some legal issues they're wrestling with, and they're hiring someone to address it. And, I was like, hey, you need somebody that can, work with you, follow instructions, be accountable for the things you need to have happen. You can, so what if they don't know about the legal issue? You can teach them about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody with the personality that is going to work with you and then care as much as you do about it. So like the job can be done right. Everybody can get home to their families, and, we don't have unnecessary stress around this. And I'd rather have that than somebody who knows all the stuff in the world, but, again, doesn't want to work hard or isn't accountable or passes the buck.
Yeah.
So,
I want to turn the page a little bit. So the future of insurance, I often wonder this myself. How do I fit in with the future of insurance? I mean, obviously there's technology disruptors out there that people haven't even thought of yet, AI or machine learning, whatever it is, whatever the technology is. And maybe it's not technology, maybe it's cultural, maybe it's societal, maybe it's economic, financial, who knows? But this is something that I'm continually watching for, because I believe that any good business, if you're standing still, you're going to fall behind. You got to be moving forward. So I would like to hear your perspective, Jared, on, how do you see the future of insurance in general? And then maybe more specifically, how do you see your firm fitting into that and moving forward? Sort of moving the ball forward,
Yeah, I think the notion of, AI or websites or tech, doing away with, the broker, the advisor, or, the service need. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Because, like I said, insurance contracts may look okay, pay premium, get coverage,
right?
Way more levels of complexity than that. And people need advice. And as tools get more sophisticated, they're going to need more advice.
Exactly.
On how to implement and which thing to implement. There's tech now for, handling policies and enrollments and all the stuff that happens, which is awesome. But you know what? It's not just one, there's 50 different solutions.
Yes.
So if I'm the business owner or the human resources representative or the CFO, I don't know. And I don't have the time to go figure out which one's best. So I need my advisors to say, hey, based on your business, this is the best, this is what I would recommend. And then, have the trust factor there to implement it. So I think as tech advances, I think actually people become more important, because you have to source the information from those subject matter experts.
Got it.
It's from those people that are going niche. Now, that being said, I think you've got insurance and healthcare, probably two of the last industries with, moats around them, or, their own little tribes, to be truly disrupted. And so that actually ends up being at an intersection, right? If you think about health insurance and, property casualty insurance, and then, the brokerage industry, you're kind of at an intersection there. And so there's opportunity within that. I mean, there's going to be new things, new ideas, exciting, programs coming out, new things that can be built. Some of these products I'm seeing, I'd love to be, 25 and nothing to do, but, go show it to people, all day long. So I think there's real opportunity in some of those things, if you're willing to sit down, learn the products. Continuing education is key, right? Like you said, you can't stand still. You got to keep, not just renewing your license, but, learning, having that curiosity to learn about, the new stuff, and then take it out and talk to people about it. And then there's opportunity within that.
You've got a colleague, Josh Jeffries, who we both know, and he's got a Rosetta product that he's developed, for employee benefits. That guy is like a rocket scientist in an industry that is not necessarily known to be innovative, but he's got to be one of the most innovative, creative geniuses out there. And if Josh can do it, others can do it too. And I think you're right. It really takes somebody that has, in most cases, mutually exclusive skill sets. In other words, the analytics, the analytical side of it, the critical thinking, but also that has the communicative skills to actually explain it to people and put it in place, and then to scale it, and then to surround yourself with talented people. Not easy to do, man.
Well, it's not. I think it does. And Josh is great. If you look at what he's certainly the Rosetta project, and then, what he's done to, basically, it used to be with health insurance, you had the doctors and then you had the consumer, and it was a direct relationship. And then insurance companies got in the way and then became this intermediary. And they've what CFO, if they had let costs increase, 7-8% year over year, wouldn't be fired, right?
Exactly.
And so what he's done, and, among others, he's not the only one, but what he's done a great job of is bringing that back to a direct relationship between the providers and the employers, the purchasers of the coverage. And just, hey, let's just work out a fair price for fair services, and you make money, get paid faster, and then the employer saves money. And, it's been a lot of work, but there's also a lot of, ingenuity and genius behind it. So he's definitely, done a great job there. But yeah, I mean, it comes back to, having that creativity, and then, in educating yourself on, how to help, the clients out there that will inevitably need it.
Exactly. So I would be interested to know, what would your advice be to some young people out there who are considering a career? I mean, put yourself in the same place you were, graduating from college, maybe you're even out a year or two, they're thinking about insurance. What advice would you give them for entering the insurance sector? I mean, anything specific?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the stuff we touched on earlier about, just, hey, know that it's going to be difficult. I mean, especially if you're on the business development or sales side, find those mentors, and then, but then at some base level, it is a numbers game.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to meet a certain amount of people. You got to talk to a certain amount of people and make a certain number of proposals and presentations.
Yeah.
And my stepson was looking at it, and I look, and it can take as long or as short as you want it to. Right. I mean, again, you get to these numbers quick, or you can drag it out.
Exactly. But it is ultimately a numbers game. You're right.
Yeah. And I dragged it out a little bit, and then, again, my stepson, he's looking at, he likes the lifestyle. He says, oh, this is nice. And, whatever. Like, well, good news is, bad news is it's going to be difficult. Good news is you can do it 10 years quicker than I did if you want, but
exactly.
You gotta, compress that down and get after it. That's why you do see some of the bigger personalities, good sales guys have early success. But then, to your point, to sustain it, you gotta build out the team. And that's where, look for complementary partners.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, you look at some of the great, there's great duos out there where, someone's really good at business development and someone else is really good at being technical, on the strategy side of it or the implementation side of it. So, look for partners that you can do stuff with, and sort of balance out your weaknesses with their strengths, and, have success together.
Good. Well, we're just about out of time now. I wanted to close with this though. So I know there's people out there watching this right now that are probably thinking, maybe I should get involved with insurance, and maybe even thinking about, how can I get an opportunity to work with Jarid himself? So how can people get a hold of you, Jarid?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, our website, www.riskmgmtadvisors.com, has, all of the information about what we do, captives, the self-insurance, a lot of great videos and content there.
Good.
Follow us on, partner up or follow us on LinkedIn. Myself, my partner, Wesley Cirk, all of our latest stuff, ideas, concepts, it all gets posted there first. Instagram, YouTube.
Wow. Good.
Risk Management Advisors. So yeah, number of different ways. And then, you can also just call and we can talk.
Good. Do you have an email?
Yes. Yeah. Email is jbeck, JBECK, at riskmgmtadvisors.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Jarid. I really appreciate it. It's been very informative, inspiring, and entertaining. I really enjoyed having you on the show. Maybe we could talk again in the future, but thank you very, very much again. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.